So everybody's talking about how George Santos got kicked to the curb. And yet, you really need to know some backstory here because this guy was a shyster, a grifter, a deadbeat from the first time that he showed up at a Republican meeting in Queens County, and he professed that he was a member. I forget which particular group he was claiming to be a member of at that time. Anyway, it'll come to me in the many different makes, looks, names of this grifter, George Santos. Oh, yeah, he said he was a member of the Tea Party, except he drank Tetley tea and not Lipton tea. I mean, this guy was fraud from day one, and so many of you bought the fraud hook, line, and sinker. The best one was when you saw those videos, Justin Ellick, and you saw George Santos, who, as opposed to the drag queen reading hour in libraries near you, 2 years outside of Rio de Janeiro, auditioning to become the grand drag queen of the annual Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, where I have guardian angels and I've actually spent time there. Yep. 2 years he tried to become the biggest drag queen of all. And when confronted with the videos where you clearly saw George Santos dressed like a woman, that's not me. They use photo recognition technology. They said, that's you. That's not me. And Justin Ellick thought he had fallen in love. Well, Justin, it's okay. Look, nowadays, they, those, him, he, she, her, whatever. That's your generation. That ain't mine. Well, let's get down to the liar, pants on fire, George Santos, and probably the two most egregious things that he has done. Number one, he claimed that his mother was a female executive at a major financial institution that was housed at the World Trade Center. And then on September 11th of 2001, George Santos' mother was in her office in the South Tower, and somehow she survived the horrific events of that day, but unfortunately passed away a few years later from the effects of trauma and cancer. Remember that story he told over and over and over, and he said, as a proud Jew, Latino, and gay man, I lost my mommy. And so what a lot of people didn't know is that when he needed money, he had to always come up with a new scam. Classic grifter. So he actually went to a Catholic church in Long Island City, Queens. And he went up to the Padre, Jose Carlos da Silva, mostly Brazilians, at St. Rita's Catholic Church. And on occasion, he and his family had gone to that church over the years, but he was not an observant Catholic. And then he goes to the priest. He goes, my mother, Fatima, has died, complications of 9/11. I have no way to bury her. Please, Padre, can we take up a collection, please? My mother was everything in my life. And he breaks down and he starts crying. Diego, I know you would have been a sucker and you would have put money in the basket, right? So the Padre gets up in the bully pulpit and he goes, today we must help out George. I'm telling you, his mother has passed away and he has no means of burying her. I'd like to collect some money. We're going to move the wicker basket from aisle to aisle, pew to pew. And as Padre Jose Carlos da Silva said, it was a hell of a lot of money after George Santos was crying up at the bully pulpit. Oh, my mother, my mother. Diego, you know what happened to that money? Who the hell knows? But it certainly didn't go to a burial because she was already buried and it had nothing to do with 9/11. She wasn't even in America. She was in Brazil. What a grifter. And Republicans and Democrats gave him a pass on that because they were aware of this. Oh, yes, they were, because they never thought he would win election. And he was more than happy to give Republicans money Nassau County Republicans, led by Congressman Peter King. Oh, here's a fraud. All the congressmen, kick him out. Kick him out, Esposito. Kick him out. Hey, how come you took $185,000 from George Santos when he was running for office? Nassau County GOP, can you answer that, please? Because he showed up with money, and they never thought he would win. And then you had the guy who took over for Zimmerman, the Democratic challenger. By the way, Zimmerman, excuse me, Swazi, pretty boy Swazi is going to return. He's going to win that seat. Republicans can knock themselves out. People will say, at least we knew what kind of crook we had with Swazi there. But he was like our kind of Democratic crook. We ain't going Republicans no more. Could you blame them? And then, so Swazi's running against Kathy Crime Wave Holcomb in a Democratic primary with Jumani, I Love Criminals, Williams. And he loses. And Zimmerman, a PR guy, steps in. He's the Democratic nominee, gay himself. Wow, first time 2 gay guys running against one another. History is going to be made. 2 debates featuring the Pisha, the Schmendrick, Zimmerman crying with our own Cindy Adams and Joan Hamburg. Oh, it's so unfair. Yeah, shut up. You're at a PR agency. You knew all about George Santos. You had 2 debates with him. You never brought up the fact that he was a grifter and a liar. None of it, because you just thought you would win. Fess up. When you mess up, you got to fess up. So Republicans messed up, Democrats messed up, and in the interim, Justin, who did the Nassau County Republicans meet with to try to run for that seat after I lost my mayoral election? Me! Oh, Curtis, you can win that district. I said, why? That's North Shore. That's mostly Nassau. That's Suffolk, a little bit of Queens. Oh, you'll win it. Well, what's wrong with the candidate you got, George Santos? The last time around, he almost beat Swazi. Oh, no, you're the best. Is there something wrong with George Santos? They took the coat of Omerta. They knew already. And then the North Leader, very prestigious community newspaper serving the North Shore, very wealthy area of Suffolk and Nassau County along the Long Island Sound. 15 Pulitzer Prizes exposed George Santos before the Times did. Before the election, they all read it. He said nothing. He ain't going to win. He ain't going to win. And then surprise, surprise, surprise. The greatest grifter, the greatest deadbeat and liar in the history of the House of Representatives, and that's saying a lot. But probably his worst of his many indiscretions, you disgraziata, you shanda, George Santos, a disabled veteran from New Jersey, ended up having a dying service dog. George Santos found out about it in 2016 and set up a GoFundMe and promised the veteran his service dog, Sapphire, who was suffering from a tumor. Don't worry, we're going to save that dog. We're going to save that dog. And the veteran was so grateful. George Santos says, don't worry about it. We're going to raise money, and they raised $3,000 in 2 months in order to save Sapphire, suffering from a tumor. This grifter, this deadbeat, how the hell would we ever let him on WABC is beyond me, stole the money. And to this day, this veteran has showed up at every court appearance and has said, because of you, my dog died. My dog died, you blankety blank blank. Sapphire. And remember, there was that momentous occasion where in one of his first interviews after he was charged with stealing money, he was on with John Katzimatidis. This was January 26th of 23. And John asked him a straight-up question. He said, yo, where'd you get the money?
Last question. The $700,000 you put into the election, was that your money?
That is the money that I paid myself through my company, the Boulder Organization.
And it was all downhill after that. John boxed him in, asked him the question that had to be asked. And every moment after that, it was down, down, down. And yet some people are still, oh, George Santos. Throw him in jail. Lock him up. And by the way, the worst crime was stealing the money from the veteran to try to cure the suffering service dog Sapphire from a tumor. For that, George Santos, you should burn in hell.